The FBI showing up at your door sounds like something out of a movie, right? But when Special Agent Harold Moore stood on my porch that Tuesday morning and told me my wife was actively planning to kill me, my entire world detonated. My name is Edmund Parker, and I'm 34 years old. I'd considered myself ordinary, a devoted father to my 6-year-old daughter Grace, a loyal husband to my wife Daniela for 8 years, someone who believed marriage vows actually meant something. The rage I felt when I heard those recordings of Daniela discussing my murder wasn't hot or explosive. It was cold, calculated, and I channeled every ounce of it into making absolutely certain she would face the full weight of justice. No plea deals, no reduced sentences, no mercy. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. The knock came at 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I'd been expecting a package, replacement parts for Grace's bike that I'd ordered online. Daniela had already left for her shift at County Medical around 6:30, and Grace was spending the week with my mother across town. I had the house to myself, a rare Tuesday morning off from work, and I figured I'd spend it fixing up my daughter's bike before she came home. I opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, coffee mug still in hand. 2 people stood on my porch, not delivery drivers, federal agents. The older one, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a lined face, held up a badge. Mr. Edmund Parker. My pulse kicked up instantly. You don't get FBI agents on your doorstep for good reasons. Yeah, that's me. I'm Special Agent Harold Moore. This is Special Agent Elise Roberts. He gestured to his partner, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s. Both of them had that grave, professional look that meant whatever came next was gonna be serious. We need to talk to you about your wife. My wife, not me. Daniela. I stepped back and opened the door wider. Come in. They followed me into the living room. I set my coffee down on the side table, noticed my hand was steady, even though my heart was hammering. Moore and Roberts sat on the couch. I took the armchair across from them. Mr. Parker, Moore said, leaning forward slightly, we've been investigating a murder-for-hire plot. Your wife, Daniela Parker, has been in contact with someone she believes is a contract killer. She's paid him $5,000 as a down payment. The words hit me, but I didn't collapse, didn't break down. I sat there processing, my mind already shifting gears. Who's the target? Moore's expression didn't change. You are. There it was. The woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, who'd given birth to our daughter, who kissed me goodbye every morning. She wanted me dead. Show me proof, I said. My voice came out steady, cold even. Roberts opened a laptop she'd brought with her, tapped a few keys, then turned the screen toward me. We're going to play you some recordings. These are conversations between your wife and our undercover agent. She hit play. Daniela's voice filled my living room. No question it was her. I'd know that voice anywhere. Soft, measured, the same tone she used when talking to Grace before bedtime, except now she was discussing how to kill me. It needs to look like a robbery gone wrong, Daniela said on the recording. A break-in. Make it quick. I don't want him to suffer. I'm not a monster, but it has to be
convincing, the undercover agent's voice responded. When do you want this done? Grace is staying with my mother-in-law this week. That gives us a window. Edmund's alone in the evenings. Tuesday or Wednesday would work best. Tuesday or Wednesday. She'd planned it around our daughter's schedule so Grace wouldn't be traumatized. How thoughtful. And the payment? The agent asked. $5,000 now, the rest, $15,000, transfers as soon as I confirm he's gone. $20,000 total. That's what my life was worth to her. Roberts paused the recording. We have multiple conversations like this, Mr. Parker. Discussions about methods, timelines, your schedule, how to make it look accidental. She's been planning this for weeks. I sat there, staring at the laptop screen, at the audio waveform frozen mid-conversation. My wife, the mother of my child, calmly purchasing my murder like she was hiring someone to fix the roof. The rage that flooded through me wasn't hot. It was ice cold, sharp, clarifying. She'd made her choice, now I'd make mine. Moore spoke again. We have enough evidence to arrest her right now, but we'd like your cooperation. We want you to wear a wire, engage her in conversations about your life insurance, your schedule, anything that might get her talking. We want an airtight case, something no defense attorney can tear apart. Can you do that?" I looked at both agents, thought about Grace, about how close I'd come to leaving her without a father, thought about Daniela tucking our daughter in at night while planning to make her an orphan. "When do we start?" I asked. No hesitation, no tears, just cold, absolute determination. Moore nodded slowly, something like approval in his eyes. "We'll brief you on the wire protocols today. You'll start wearing it tomorrow." Wednesday morning, I woke up next to the woman who'd paid $5,000 to have me murdered. The wire was already in place. A small recording device the FBI had fitted against my chest the afternoon before, hidden under my shirt. Moore had walked me through the protocols. Keep conversations natural, don't push too hard, let Daniela talk. Document everything. Daniela stirred beside me, rolled over, smiled. "Morning." "Morning," I said back, and kissed her forehead like I had 1,000 times before. She got up, headed for the shower. I lay there, listening to the water run, my mind racing even though my face stayed calm. How do you live with someone who wants you dead? How do you pretend everything's normal when you know exactly what she's planning? You do it because the alternative is letting her win, and I wasn't about to let that happen. For 3 days, I played the perfect husband. Wednesday morning, Daniela kissed me goodbye before her shift at County Medical. "Love you," she said. "Love you too," I replied. The wire captured it all. She texted me during the day. Normal stuff about picking up milk, asking if I wanted pasta for dinner, mentioning that Grace's birthday party needed a theme. I responded like nothing had changed. Pasta sounded great. Maybe a princess theme for Grace. That evening, we discussed grocery shopping. Daniela wanted to stock up on snacks for when Grace came home. I suggested we needed to fix the loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen. "I'll grab some tools this weekend," I said. "You're so good at fixing things," Daniela said, smiling at me across the dinner table. Yeah, I was about to fix this situation permanently. Thursday night, we watched television together on the couch. Some crime dramas Daniela liked. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, completely relaxed. "I love our life," she said softly during a commercial break. "You, me, Grace, everything we've built together." The rage that surged through me was white hot, but I buried it deep, smiled, stroked her hair. Me too. She had no idea I was recording every word, no idea that the FBI was building a case that would destroy her. I remember summers at my dad's workshop when I was a kid, the smell of sawdust, the patient way he'd teach me to measure twice and cut once. Precision mattered. Preparation mattered. Same principle applied here. Friday evening, I made my move. We were having dinner, chicken and vegetables Daniela had cooked. Normal, domestic, the kind of scene that would look perfect in a family photo. I set down my fork. "I was thinking about our life insurance policies." Daniela glanced up. "What about them?" "Well, I updated mine 6 months ago, doubled the payout to $2 million. I kept my tone casual, conversational. You encouraged that, remember? You said Grace needed more protection." "Right." Her voice was steady, but I caught the slight tension in her shoulders. "Maybe we should review your policy too," I continued. "Make sure everything's equal. If something happened to you, I'd want to make sure—" "Mine's fine." She cut me off, sharper than necessary. "We don't need to spend more money on premiums right now." "But if something happened to you, Edmund," I said. "It's fine." There was an edge now, unmistakable. "Why are you being so morbid about this? Why are you even thinking about death?" I held her gaze. "Just planning for the future, making sure our family's protected no matter what happens." She stared at me for a long moment, and I wondered if she suspected, if somehow she'd figured out that I knew. Her eyes searched my face, looking for cracks in my performance. Then she softened, stood up, came around the table, wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You're a good man, Edmund. Too good for this world sometimes." I leaned into the embrace, let her hold me. The wire captured every word. Too good for this world. She had no idea how that phrase would sound when played in a courtroom. No idea that her attempted affection was sealing her fate. "Just want to take care of you," I said quietly. "Both of you." "I know," Daniela whispered. "That's why I love you." That Friday, I walked into the coffee shop at 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes early, just like Agent Roberts had instructed. The wire sat against my chest, familiar now. Roberts had fitted me with a fresh one that morning, tested it twice, made sure every word would be captured crystal clear. This was it, the moment we'd been building toward all week. I ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking, and sat 3 tables away from the corner booth where Daniela would meet the man she thought was going to kill me. Harold Moore was already there, positioned at the booth, scrolling through his phone like any other customer, waiting for someone. He didn't acknowledge me. We'd agreed. No contact, no recognition. I was just another guy in a coffee shop on a Friday night. My hands were steady on the table. My breathing was even. But underneath, the rage burned, cold and controlled. At exactly 7, Daniela walked in. She looked normal. That's what got me. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her nurse's bag slung over one shoulder like she'd just come from a shift. She scanned the shop, spotted Moore, and smiled. Smiled. Then she walked over and sat down across from him like they were old friends meeting for coffee. I watched the woman I'd married, the mother of my daughter, settle into that booth and prepare to finalize the details of my murder. "Sorry I'm a few minutes late," Daniela said. Her voice carried just enough for me to hear. "Traffic was terrible." Moore nodded. "No problem. You want anything? Coffee?" "No, I'm good. Let's just talk about Tuesday." Straight to business. No hesitation, no guilt. "Next Tuesday works best," Daniela continued, leaning forward slightly. "He's always alone Tuesday evenings. Our daughter, Grace, she has dance class until 8. He'll be home by himself from about 6:30 on." I felt my jaw tighten. She'd planned it around Grace's schedule, made sure our daughter wouldn't be home to witness anything. How thoughtful. "And you want it to look like what?" Moore asked. "A break-in, a robbery gone wrong." Daniela's tone was matter-of-fact, clinical. "He keeps his laptop in the living room. There's a TV, some electronics. Make it look like someone broke in looking for valuables and he's surprised them." "Got it," Moore said. "And the payment?" 15,000 transfers as soon as I get confirmation he's dead." She said it so casually, like she was discussing a car payment or a home repair bill. That's when I stood up. I walked straight to their table. Daniela saw me before I reached them. Her eyes went wide, her face draining of every ounce of color. "Hey, honey," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Interesting conversation you're having." She couldn't speak, just sat there frozen, staring at me like I was a ghost. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I leaned down, bringing my face close to hers. "Did you actually think you were smart enough to pull this off?" Edmund, this isn't, I didn't." The words came out in broken fragments. She was trying to form sentences, trying to find some explanation that would make sense. There
Wasn't one. Moore pulled out his badge. "Special Agent Harold Moore, FBI. Daniela Parker, you're under arrest for solicitation of murder." She lunged up from her chair so fast it scraped backward. "You set me up, you bastard! You set me up!" "No," I said, ice cold. "You set yourself up when you decided my life was worth $2 million. I just made sure you'd pay for it." Agent Roberts appeared from the back of the shop. She'd been positioned there the whole time, waiting. She moved in with handcuffs while Daniela was still screaming. "I gave you 8 years, Daniela shrieked as Roberts cuffed her wrists. "I gave you a daughter, and you were going to leave me for nothing, for nothing." "I never said I was leaving you," I replied, my voice steady and controlled. "But now I'm making absolutely certain you'll never hurt anyone again." They had to drag her out. She fought, screaming at me, at the agents, at the other customers staring in shock. Her voice echoed through the coffee shop. Accusations, justifications, rage. I stood there and watched it all, hands steady, breathing even. The first phase was complete. Monday morning, 9 sharp. I walked into the district attorney's office with my phone still buzzing in my pocket. I'd ignored 37 calls since Friday night, maybe more. Friends, distant relatives, people I barely remembered from high school. Everyone suddenly wanted to check on me, hear the story firsthand, offer support I didn't need. I had one priority, making sure Daniela's case was airtight. The receptionist directed me to the third floor. I took the stairs, needed the movement, needed to channel the restless energy that had kept me awake most of the weekend. Victor Clarkson's office was at the end of a long hallway lined with case files and legal citations. His door was open. "Mr. Parker?" he said, standing when I entered. "Right on time." We shook hands. Clarkson was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of intense focus that made you believe he saw through every lie before it was spoken. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "I'll be direct," Clarkson said, sitting down. "Your wife's attorney is going to argue entrapment. They'll say the FBI coerced her, that she never would have gone through with it, that she was manipulated into saying things she didn't mean." I'd expected that. "She paid $5,000 up front," I said flatly. "She provided specific details about my schedule, about when our daughter wouldn't be home. That's not coercion." "Exactly." Clarkson pulled a thick folder from his desk drawer and opened it. The recordings are damning. Her own voice discussing methods, payment, timing. She mentioned Grace by name, said she wanted it done while your daughter was at dance class so Grace wouldn't be traumatized. The way he said it, clinical, factual, made the reality even sharper. Daniela had thought about Grace, had planned around her schedule, had wanted to spare our daughter the trauma of finding my body. How considerate. "But here's what I need you to understand," Clarkson continued. "Evidence is powerful, but juries connect with people, with testimony. I need you on that stand, Mr. Parker. I need you to look at those 12 people and tell them what it felt like to discover your wife was planning your murder. Can you do that?" I met his eyes without hesitation. "Absolutely." "Her attorney will come at you hard during cross-examination," Clarkson warned. "They'll try to paint you as the bad guy, neglectful husband, distant father, whatever narrative they think will create reasonable doubt. They'll twist your words, question your motives, suggest you manipulated the FBI into targeting Daniela. Let them try," I said. My voice was cold, controlled. "I've got nothing to hide." Clarkson studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Good, because the defense will also argue that Daniela was scared of you, that she felt threatened, that hiring someone was an act of desperation." "She never filed a police report," I said. "Never got a restraining order, never told anyone I was threatening her because I wasn't." "That's what we'll prove." Clarkson tapped the folder. "Preliminary hearings start in 3 weeks. If she doesn't take a plea, and I doubt she will, trial begins in approximately 3 months. 3 months. 90 days to prepare. 90 days to make sure Daniela faced every consequence she'd earned." "What happens if she does take a plea?" I asked. "Then we negotiate sentencing. But honestly," Clarkson leaned back, "I don't think she will. Her family's already retained a defense attorney with a reputation for fighting losing battles. They think they can win this." "They can't," I said simply. "No," Clarkson agreed. "They can't." I left his office 20 minutes later with a copy of the preliminary hearing schedule and a renewed sense of purpose. This was going to happen. Daniela was going to face a jury, and I was going to be the one who made sure they understood exactly what she'd done. But first, I had to face something harder than any courtroom testimony. I had to tell Grace why her mother wasn't coming home. The drive to my mother's house took 30 minutes. I spent the entire time rehearsing what to say, how to explain to a 6-year-old that Mommy had made choices so terrible she'd be gone for years, maybe forever. There was no good way to do it, no script that would make it easier. Grace deserved honesty, but she also deserved protection from the full horror of what Daniela had planned. I pulled into Mom's driveway just before noon. Grace was waiting. Monday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Mom's living room felt like a sanctuary. Grace was on the floor near the couch, arranging her stuffed animals in some elaborate pattern only she understood. She hummed softly to herself, completely unaware that the next few minutes would change everything. I sat on the couch watching her. My mother sat beside me, her hand resting gently on my arm. "You ready?" she asked quietly. I wasn't, but it didn't matter. "Grace, sweetheart," I called. "Can you come sit with me and Grandma for a minute?"
She looked up, her little face bright with innocence. "Can I bring Mr. Whiskers?" "Of course." She grabbed the worn teddy bear, a gift from her 3rd birthday, and climbed onto the couch between us. Mom had already arranged Grace's favorite blanket and a few comfort items nearby. Small things, but they mattered. Grace settled in, hugging Mr. Whiskers. "What's wrong, Daddy?" "How do you tell your daughter her mother tried to kill you?" "You don't, not like that." I took a breath. "Sweetheart, Mommy made some very bad choices. She hurt people, and now she has to stay in a place where grown-ups go when they break important rules." Grace wasn't stupid. Her eyes widened slightly. "Like jail?" "Yes, like jail." She processed that, her small hands squeezing the teddy bear tighter. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Did she hurt you, Daddy?" I chose every word with extreme care. "She tried to, but I'm safe now. And you're safe. That's what matters most." I could see the confusion spreading across her face, the pain of trying to reconcile the mother who tucked her in at night with someone who would hurt her father. "Is she coming back?" Grace's voice was small now. This was the part that would break her heart. "Not for a very long time, baby," I said gently. "Maybe never." Her face crumpled. The tears
Came fast and sudden, and she turned into my chest, sobbing. I held her, wrapped my arms around my daughter, and let her grieve for the mother she'd lost, the mother who'd chosen $2 million over the family she'd built. Grace cried like only children can cry, full-body sobs that shook her small frame. Mr. Whiskers fell to the floor, forgotten. I felt nothing for Daniela, not even as Grace wept in my arms, just cold, crystalline satisfaction that justice was moving forward exactly as it should. Mom leaned in, rubbing Grace's back. "You're safe, sweetheart. Daddy and I will always keep you safe, always loved. You hear me?" Grace nodded against my shirt, hiccuping through her tears. We sat like that for a long time. I don't know exactly how long. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been 30. Time felt elastic when your child's world was shattering. Eventually, Grace's sobs quieted to sniffles. She pulled back, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Can I stay here with Grandma?" she asked, her voice. "For a few more days?" "Of course," I said immediately. "It feels safe here." Those 3 words nearly broke me, but I kept my composure, kissed her forehead. "You can stay as long as you need." Mom gathered Grace into her arms. "We'll make cookies tonight, the chocolate chip ones you love." Grace nodded, exhausted from crying. I stood slowly, knowing I needed to let them have this time together. Grace needed comfort I couldn't fully provide right now, the kind only a grandmother could give. "I'll call you tomorrow morning," I told Mom. She met my eyes with an understanding that needed no words. I left them in the living room, Grace curled against her grandmother, surrounded by familiar toys and blankets and safety. My daughter would heal eventually, but Daniela, she'd face every consequence coming her way. Thursday morning arrived cold and clear. I stood on the courthouse steps at 8:30, Victor Clarkson beside me, briefcase in hand. "You ready for this?" he asked. I was wearing my best suit, the navy one I'd bought for job interviews years ago. Absolutely. The jury had been selected yesterday, 12 people, 7 women, 5 men. Regular folks who'd now decide whether Daniela spent the next several decades in prison. She'd pleaded not guilty, forced us into a full trial instead of accepting a plea deal that might have spared Grace some of the public spectacle. But that was Daniela, always convinced she was smarter than everyone else. We entered the courtroom. I saw her immediately, sitting at the defense table with Blake Romero. Her attorney looked exactly like you'd expect a high-priced defense lawyer to look. Polished, expensive suit, slicked-back hair, and a practiced expression of confidence. Daniela wore a conservative dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back, playing the role of wronged wife. She didn't look at me. Judge William Harris called the court to order at 9 sharp. Victor stood for opening statements. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a woman who decided her husband's life was worth $2 million. Daniela Parker didn't act in a moment of passion. She researched, she planned. She paid $5,000 as a down payment to someone she believed was a contract killer.
She provided specific details: when her husband would be alone, how the murder should look, when her daughter would be safely away. You'll hear recordings of Mrs. Parker's own voice discussing these details. You'll hear testimony from the FBI agents who stopped this murder from happening.
You'll hear from the intended victim himself, Edmund Parker, who trusted this woman with his life and discovered that trust was a death sentence. The evidence will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Daniela Parker is guilty of solicitation of murder. Blake Romero stood next. My client is a nurse, a mother, a woman who made a terrible mistake when FBI agents manipulated and entrapped her. You'll hear that Mrs. Parker was frightened, confused, pressured by federal agents into conversations she never intended to follow through on. This is a case of overzealous law enforcement destroying a family to make headlines. It was complete garbage. The prosecution started with evidence, audio recordings. The courtroom went absolutely silent when Daniela's voice filled the speakers. Next Tuesday, he's always alone Tuesday evenings. Grace will be at dance class until 8. Make it look like a break-in. I watched the jurors. Several women looked horrified. One older man shook his head slowly. The remaining $15,000 as soon as I confirm he's dead. Daniela sat perfectly still, staring at the table. When Victor called me to the stand, I walked up calmly, placed my hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Victor guided me through the story. Our marriage, 8 years, mostly good until about 12 months ago when Daniela became distant. The morning Harold Moore showed up at my door. The shock of learning my wife had paid to have me killed. Mr. Parker, what did you do after the FBI contacted you? I agreed to wear a wire. I lived in my own house with a woman who wanted me dead and recorded our conversations for 3 days. How did that feel? Like walking through a nightmare while pretending everything was normal. Victor nodded. Why did you cooperate with the FBI? Because I wanted to make absolutely certain she'd face consequences, not just an arrest, an airtight case that would put her away for a very long time. Blake Romero stood for cross-examination. Mr. Parker, isn't it true that you and your wife had been having marital problems? We had rough patches like any couple. Rough enough that you considered divorce. I'd thought about it, but I never acted on it, he paced, playing to the jury. And isn't it true that you stood to gain significantly from your wife's arrest? Full custody of your daughter, the house, all marital assets? I stared him down, let the silence build. I stood to gain my life, counselor. Everything else is secondary to that. Several jurors nodded. Blake tried a few more angles, but I didn't budge. Kept my answers calm, factual, unshakable. When I stepped down, I caught Daniela's eyes for just a second. She looked away first. Friday morning, day 2 of the trial. Daniela took the stand at 9:30. She wore the same modest dress as yesterday. Her eyes were already rimmed red, like she'd been crying all night. Maybe she had been. I didn't care. Blake Romero started gently. Mrs. Parker, can you tell the jury what happened when the FBI contacted you? Daniela's voice trembled. This man, Agent Moore, he approached me at the hospital, said he knew people who could help me with a problem. I was confused. I didn't understand what he meant at first. What did you think he meant? I thought maybe he was offering protection. Edmund had been acting so strange, distant, angry. I was scared. I kept my face absolutely neutral, let her perform. Mrs. Parker, did you feel Threatened by your husband?
Yes. She wiped her eyes. He'd stay up late just staring at me, wouldn't talk to me. I thought he might hurt me first. It was complete fiction. Every word. Blake guided her through a carefully crafted story. The FBI had pressured her, manipulated her fear, recorded conversations out of context. She'd never actually intended to go through with anything. I was terrified, Daniela sobbed. I didn't know what to do. They kept pushing and pushing, and I just went along with it because I thought if I didn't, something worse would happen. Several jurors looked sympathetic. That changed when Victor stood up. "Mrs. Parker," he said calmly, "you claim you felt threatened by your husband. Did you ever file a police report about these alleged threats?" Daniela hesitated. "No, but did you ever seek a restraining order?" "I was afraid he'd find out." "Mrs. Parker, yes or no? Did you seek a restraining order?" "No." Victor nodded. "Did you tell anyone, a friend, a family member, a coworker at County Medical, about these supposed threats from your husband?" Silence. "Mrs. Parker, I didn't want to worry anyone." "So you told no one?" "No." Victor let that sit for a moment. Then he pulled out the transcripts. "Mrs. Parker, you paid $5,000 to someone you believed was a contract killer, correct?" "They pressured me." "Yes or no, Mrs. Parker?" "Yes." "You provided detailed information about your husband's schedule, when he'd be alone, when your daughter would be safely away." "I wasn't thinking clearly." "You discussed specific methods for his murder, a break-in, making it look like a robbery." Daniela was crying harder now. "I never meant—" "You arranged for the remaining $15,000 to transfer upon confirmation of your husband's death, correct?" "I don't—" "Mrs. Parker, we have recordings of your own voice saying these things. Did you say them or not?" "Yes, but—" Victor stepped closer. "Mrs. Parker, does all of that, the money, the planning, the specific instructions, the payment structure, does that sound like someone who is confused and frightened, or does it sound like someone executing a calculated plan?" Daniela couldn't answer, just sat there sobbing, mascara running down her face. "Mrs. Parker, if you were truly afraid your husband might hurt you, why didn't you leave him, file for divorce, move out, contact the police?" "I don't know." "Instead, you tried to have him killed." "No." Daniela's voice cracked. I didn't." But she couldn't finish, couldn't form a coherent defense, because there wasn't one. Victor let the silence stretch, let the jury watch Daniela fall apart under the weight of her own lies. "No further questions, Your Honor." Daniela stumbled back to the defense table. Blake tried to whisper something reassuring, but she was beyond consolation. Judge Harris looked to Victor. "Does the prosecution rest?" "We do, Your Honor." "And the defense?" Blake stood. "We rest as well, Your Honor." Harris nodded. "Closing arguments will be Monday morning at 9. Court is adjourned." The gavel came down. I walked out of that courtroom knowing exactly how Monday would end. Monday afternoon, 4 hours after the jury disappeared to deliver it. I sat in the front row, hands clasped, breathing steady. Mom had Grace at home. My daughter didn't need to see this. Whatever happened. The jury filed back in. 12 faces, expressionless. You're not supposed to read anything into that, but I tried anyway. Judge Harris looked at them. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreperson stood. Middle-aged woman, glasses, calm demeanor. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of solicitation of murder in the first degree, how do you find the defendant?"
Daniela Parker? Guilty. The word hit me like a physical thing. Not relief. Something colder. Vindication, maybe. Justice. Daniela collapsed in her chair like someone had cut her strings. Blake leaned over, whispering something, but she was beyond hearing him. Just sat there, shoulders shaking, face buried in her hands. I felt nothing for her. Absolutely nothing. Judge Harris set sentencing for 2 weeks out. Then it was over. Gavel down, jury dismissed, everyone standing. I walked out of that courthouse thinking I'd won completely. 3 days later, someone knocked on my door. I opened it expecting a delivery. Instead, I got Jared Rodriguez, Daniela's brother, 6'2", built like he lived in a gym, face twisted with rage. "You destroyed her," he snarled. "You set her up, you lying piece of—" "Your sister tried to have me killed," I interrupted. "I didn't set up anything. She made her choices. The FBI manipulated her. You manipulated her. And now she's going to prison because you couldn't handle—" "Handle what, exactly?" My voice stayed level. "Handle her paying someone to murder me?" He stepped closer, aggressive, threatening. "Grace needs her mother. Grace needs a living father," I shot back, "which she wouldn't have if Daniela had succeeded, or did you forget that part?" His jaw worked. "You better hope she doesn't get out early, because if she does, if she gets released and comes home, you're going to regret everything you did." I pulled out my phone, started recording. "Are you threatening me?" He noticed the phone, hesitated. "Because I'm recording this conversation," I continued, "and I'm happy to forward it to the police, add it to the restraining order I'm about to file. Your call." Jared backed off a step, but the rage in his eyes didn't diminish. "This isn't over." "Yeah," I said, "it is." He left. I watched him get in his truck and drive away, then immediately called Victor. Daniela's brother just showed up at my house making threats. Victor's voice sharpened. "What kind of threats?" "The vague future kind. Said I'd regret everything if she gets out early. I recorded it." "Good. Document everything. Send me the recording. If he comes back, call the police immediately. I'll start paperwork for a restraining order." "Thanks." I hung up thinking that was it, the last desperate move from Daniela's family before they accepted reality. I was wrong. The following week, Victor called again. Blake Romero filed an appeal. I felt my stomach drop. On what grounds? Judicial error and ineffective assistance of counsel. He's arguing Judge Harris allowed prejudicial evidence, that the jury was tainted by media coverage, that his own performance was inadequate. That's garbage. Every procedure was followed. Every piece of evidence was legal. I know, and will prove that, but it means sentencing is postponed pending the appeal hearing. How long? Could be weeks, could be months. I sat down. The satisfaction of the guilty verdict was already slipping away, replaced by cold reality. This wasn't over, not even close. Edmonds. "Appeals rarely succeed," Victor said, "especially in cases with evidence this strong. But the process takes time. So Daniela just sits in county jail while this drags out." "Yes, and we keep building our case to defeat the appeal." I thanked him and ended the call. 6 more weeks. That's how long it took for the appeal hearing to get scheduled. 6 weeks of managing Grace's questions about when Mommy would be sentenced. 6 weeks of looking over my shoulder every time someone knocked on my door. 6 weeks of watching my hard-won victory turn into prolonged uncertainty. But I'd come this far. I wasn't backing down now.
Weeks after the guilty verdict, I sat in the appellate courtroom next to Victor. Different room, different setup. 3 judges instead of 1. No jury, just cold legal analysis. Daniela had a new attorney, Annalee White, appellate specialist. Expensive, polished. The kind of lawyer who charged by the minute and billed for thinking about your case while showering. She stood before the 3-judge panel and argued that the original trial was fundamentally flawed. The FBI's tactics constituted clear entrapment, White said, her voice smooth and confident. My client was manipulated by federal agents who manufactured this entire scenario. Additionally, the trial court improperly admitted the recorded conversations, evidence that it was prejudicial and obtained through coercive methods. Furthermore, Mr. Parker's testimony was coached, unreliable, and should never have been presented to the jury. I felt my jaw tighten. Coached? I told the truth. Nothing but the truth. Victor stood when it was his turn. He didn't waste energy on dramatic gestures, just facts. "The court will find," Victor began, "that every argument Ms. White raised fails under established legal precedent." He walked the judges through case law, procedural documentation, FBI protocols. He demonstrated that Daniela's rights had been scrupulously protected at every stage. He showed that the recordings were legally obtained, that the investigation followed proper channels, that my testimony was voluntary and truthful. "Mrs. Parker initiated contact with the undercover agent," Victor continued. "She paid money. She provided specific instructions. She discussed methods and timelines. At no point did law enforcement coerce, pressure, or manufacture her criminal intent. They simply prevented a murder." The judges listened, asked questions, took notes. Then they retired to deliberate.
I waited in the hallway with my mother. "What if they overturn it?" I asked quietly. Mom looked at me with that expression she'd had since I was a kid, the one that said she knew better and I should trust her. "They won't," she said firmly. "You did everything right. The FBI did everything right. Justice will prevail, Edmund." I wanted to believe her. 2 hours later, the judges returned. The lead judge, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses and a nonsense demeanor, delivered the decision. After reviewing the complete trial record, this court finds no merit to any of the appellant's claims. The investigation was properly conducted, the evidence was legally obtained, and the trial court made no reversible errors. The conviction stands, the appeal is denied. Sentencing will proceed as scheduled next week. The weight lifted. Just like that. Daniela's appeal was dead. The guilty verdict was final. 1 week later, I sat in the same courtroom where the jury had convicted her. Judge Harris looked down at Daniela from the bench. "Mrs. Parker, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence?" She stood, tears already streaming. "I made mistakes," Daniela said, her voice trembling. "But I never wanted anyone to actually get hurt. I was confused. I was scared. I wasn't thinking clearly." She pressed a tissue to her eyes. "I'm a good mother. I'm a good person. I'm begging for mercy. Please, Grace needs me." I felt nothing. Just watched her perform. Judge Harris let her finish. Then he spoke. "Mrs. Parker, you didn't make
Mistake. You made a series of calculated decisions designed to end your husband's life. You researched methods, you arranged financing, you provided specific instructions about timing and execution. The only reason Edmund Parker is alive today is because law enforcement intervened." Daniela's crying intensified. "You've shown no genuine remorse," Harris continued, "only regret that you were caught. This court has a responsibility to protect society from individuals who believe they can purchase another person's death. Therefore, I sentence you to 25 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. 25 years? Daniela screamed. Not words, just raw animal noise. Bailiffs moved in as she lunged toward the bench, still screaming, still crying. They dragged her out. She fought them the whole way, shrieking about injustice and conspiracies. I sat there and watched. Grace would be 31 before Daniela could even apply for parole. 31, an adult with her own life, her own choices. Justice wasn't just served, it would continue for decades. 6 months later, everything had changed. Grace was thriving. Therapy helped. She had a counselor who specialized in kids processing trauma. Grace joined a soccer league, made new friends, smiled real smiles again. I'd sold the house. Too many bad memories soaked into those walls. We moved to a different neighborhood with Mom's help. Fresh start. And I met someone, Mary Kim, a teacher at Grace's school. We started talking at parent-teacher conferences, discovered we had things in common, started dating, slowly, carefully. Grace liked her. That mattered more than anything. Daniela tried contacting Grace from prison, letters, phone calls, requests for visits. I blocked every single attempt, got a court order limiting her to supervised written correspondence, and only if Grace explicitly requested it. She hadn't. I heard through sources that Daniela wasn't adapting well, fights with other inmates, lost privileges, time in solitary. Turns out trying to hire a hitman doesn't earn you respect, even in prison. Good. 1 year after Harold Moore knocked on my door, I stood in my backyard watching Grace play with Mary's golden retriever, Sunday. My daughter was laughing, really laughing. Mary came up beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I'd protected Grace from the worst of it, given her a stable home, started building something new, something without betrayal, without murder plots, without lies. Daniela had 13 more years minimum before she could even think about parole, and I'd make damn sure she served every single day. She wanted to take my life, my daughter, my future. Instead, I took everything from her. That's not revenge. That's justice. and it feels exactly as satisfying as it should. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even